Tales of Mithrym.
At the Sign of the Running Horse, narrated by Dolynuik, Part 14, The Morning After. The sun rose on the tavern, birds sang, and small animals began their daily toil. The living world seemed almost oblivious to the events of the last night. Inside, Elvin woke up from his short, albeit deep, sleep. On the table beside his bed, his sword lay in its scabbard. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, then rose and dressed for the day. He hummed a tune to himself as he buttoned his long coat and slung his sword belt round, fastening it into place. He made his way out of the room and down the stairs. He could smell frying bacon and toasting bread along with the rich smell of brewing coffee. He smiled. Even through the pain and bruising, he felt happy to start the day. The large room, filled with its tables and chairs, seemed oddly empty. A few people were working the bar and bringing out food and drinks, but apart from that, there were only a handful of tables occupied. At one, Elvin saw a group of wardens. They each had dressings and slings from the night's fighting. At another, he saw the captain and her sergeant, Boris. The enormous man appeared to be trying to crack a boiled egg. At the last table, he saw Ducky and Dervil. They seemed to be deep in conversation. "Take a seat, sir. I'll be right over to you," a woman called to Elvin. He hesitated for a moment, but Ducky pointed to an empty seat at their table, so he made his way over and sat down. After a short while, a plate of food was brought over, and Elvin began eating. The three of them continued their breakfast quietly for some time. Then, as Elvin was about to clear his plate and make his way back upstairs, Ducky spoke. "So, where are you heading now, Lieutenant?" Elvin was slightly taken aback. "I'm not really sure, to be honest with you." He thought for a moment. "I was heading towards Crail, but, frankly, I am not sure that I want to." He leaned back in his chair and looked up at the ceiling. "I might head down to the coast, see if I can find a ship. I hear sailoring is a lot more relaxing than soldiering." Just then, Elvin lowered his head as he heard footsteps approaching. He turned to see the captain heading over to their table. "Good morning, Lieutenant," she said with a smile, wincing only slightly from a pain in her bandaged arm. "Thank you for your work last night." "You are very welcome, Captain," he smiled. Then memory dawned. "Last night, you were about to—" "That reminds me." The captain turned on Dervil. "Miss Aneth?" Dervil sat bolt upright, staring at the captain, tensed as if ready to run. "Yes?" "Your conduct last night was extraordinary. If it weren't for your quick action, my wardens and I would be— well, we wouldn't be, if you catch my meaning." The captain placed a small piece of folded parchment on the table. "This is a pardon." Dervil looked shocked. "It's only for Alsager, mind you, and it's only a pardon, not a warrant or a license for any more of your past behavior." Dervil picked up the letter and looked it over. She smiled. The captain smiled too. "I think you deserve a second chance." The captain winced again at the pain in her arm. "And besides, there are worse things in this world than thieves." She made her way back to the other wardens, and soon after, they funneled out. The sound of cartwheels and horses' hooves could be heard outside, and Elvin, Ducky, and Dervil found themselves alone. "The sea, eh?" Ducky said, stretching his long arms and leaning back in his chair. "I hear that can be dangerous, you know." Elvin smiled. "So I gather." "I expect you could do with protection, taking on a journey like that." Elvin laughed. "I expect I could." He stood up and straightened out his uniform. "I cannot pay you well, or at all for that matter. You know, a military pension does not exactly cover much, and, well, a lord I may be, technically, but I do not have a fortune." Ducky smiled and stood up. "Don't worry, sir." He performed a comically stiff salute. "I can find my own pay along the way." The two men turned to walk away as Elvin suddenly stopped and looked down at his belt. Where was— There was a quiet laugh behind them. Dervil was holding the sheathed sword and examining the hilt closely. "It seems you could both do with someone that can keep a watchful eye," she said, smiling. "I'm not looking for charity, though. I hope you understand that. It was just nice having someone who missed me when I went missing, if you know what I mean." Elvin walked over. Dervil handed him his sword. "Miss Aneth?" Anyone that can take out a necromancer, he thought, then added, and that can disarm a trained lieutenant so easily too, would be a valuable ally indeed. He smiled. The three of them gathered their things and made their way outside. The sun was shining brightly through the leaves above, and the air seemed somehow fresher this morning than it had the night before. "Do either of you know a good marching song?" Elvin asked, shouldering his pack. "Can't say I was ever one for singing," Ducky said with a laugh. "No, more of a dancer, I suppose." Elvin laughed as well. Derville's voice cut the air as she began to sing. 20 I got for selling my coat, 20 for selling my blanket." Elvin joined in. He knew the song well. Ducky hopped a dance beside them as they made their way down the path together. "Poor old soldier, poor old soldier." The sound of the song drifted through the air. The three companions made their way down the path. There was a whole world out there to explore, and they were off to see it.
Tales of Mithrym are written by Jimmy Clephane. Mithrym is a fantasy world built for the Dungeon Room role-playing game system. To find out more about the world of Mithrym, or to try out the game, go to www.mithrym.com.